Well, welcome. My name's Jim Parker. This is going to be personal finance. So, for the fall term here in 2022, seems like we're getting kind of a late start this season. It's the only thing that isn't going screaming by fast. Anyway, seasons are changing, obviously. At least we're through the rain. But anyway, let's talk about personal finance a little bit. Personal finance. This course is I, I granted I'm kind of partial to it since I teach it, but I think it's a pretty useful course. It's more than just a typical college course. I do think you'll be able to get something out of it, and I've kind of got it structured. One of the things will be a term project where you'll put together kind of a lifelong financial plan for somebody in your situation. I guarantee 90% of the people will hate it and won't have a hard time getting started in it. But I do think it is kind of useful. Once you figure it out, you'll be able maybe to reference it, or at least have a template for a situation. So we'll discuss that in depth. It's not like a budgeting project for right now, because probably quite a few of you are traditional college students, and so the amount of money and things you're dealing with are probably not as significant as they will be once you get your degree and you're immersed in your career. Although we live in interesting times, let's hope there's still careers to be had. Anyway, so we'll talk about the syllabus tonight, and then we'll also talk about just chapter 1. We'll jump right into the course. So let me see. Some of these pictures are getting a little dated, but anyway, I've got 2 daughters. I raise Hungarian Vizslas. I've got them out on the deck right now, but there's 6 of them, so they're still pretty loud. I breed. I've been breeding Vizslas for, I guess, 12 years now. I don't know. Probably had him for 15. Chief, he's my old Appy. He's a beautiful horse, but now I'm just strictly quarter horses. Used to fly in the Air Force. I flew more modern planes than this, but I was kind of lucky enough to get in on the tail end of the F4. I flew F-15Es after that. Airplane I've got down. It's in pieces right now, so I need to get that together. Do a lot of stuff with horses. What I kind of embarked on a couple of years ago was, I used to live in Eagle River, and now I'm out in the valley, and I was kind of getting pushed out of Eagle River. It was just, kind of encroaching for things I wanted to do. So I bought a pretty good sized parcel of land. Came with a bunch of, whatever. Jim Creek's up off this way, so the kind of a rough crowd in here, but we turned it into a campground. I've got a couple host people who are old retired couple, and they kind of keep things square down there. So I don't really put much time on it, and they keep it nice and clean, and because that's all I want to do. In fact, this was from last night. Go figure. So anyway, yeah, when I got it, it was pretty much a distressed property, but now it's pretty good. So raised a lot of hogs there for a while. Tough business. This guy had just been eating some birthday cake. They ate primarily things out of the food bank. Here's some cattle. Believe it or not, that's a Scottish Highlander, but they're not always red. More Vizslas, pheasants, lots of pigs. And the pigs were all over. We were all free range, but the slaughterhouse closed down, and we had to kind of step back from that. It was unfortunate. What else? So, yep, got an MBA and a PhD. I worked for Booz Allen. I kind of had a life change just a while ago. This was, if you know who Snowden worked for, Booz Allen, kind of a whatever, big company based in the out of D.C. Do a lot of secret work, a lot of whatever, and I finally got to be a little too much. I was working out at J-Bear doing information operations stuff, communications and stuff, but that whole realm. Anyway, I've got other things I'd like to kind of do with my life in terms of developing this property and some other things. So I moved on from that just last October. I also, while I was doing this, I was also doing real estate for a short time. Tough business. You got to kind of immerse yourself in there full time if you're going to do that. But anyway, we can talk more about real estate stuff. But anyway, I maintained my license. It's lapsed now, but I pass a test, and had done it for a few years. And then there's some other things I did, because I know what you're saying, in terms of military background. But believe me, in the military, there's a lot of business elements. And I did, out of NATO, NAMSA down in Luxembourg. I think I was in the military for about 23 years. Worked for Booz Allen for about 10, 12. Anyway, yeah, I spent majority of my time in Europe, Germany, Turkey, Spain for 3 years. Anyway, and then all over the Middle East. So I still have a home in Germany, but it's renters in it, and I do go to Europe quite a bit, but I tend to go further east now. Anyway, Germany's just kind of just been there too long. I lived there, I think, 6 years straight at one point. So, Connect River Ranch is the name of the property. It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's controversial, but a lot of people thought it was public land. It never was. It was always private land, and but in order to keep the trash and everything under control, I had to, put up the fence and all that kind of stuff. So it's worked out, and it'll be a good project in the long run. I want to do more with it than a campground. So I'm working on that now. Super involved transaction. All three of these are mine, but that's what I had to do just to buy it. So, but it fronts has frontage on the Connect River, so it's quite nice. Anyway, Pioneer Peak's right there. Okay, and then this is into some of the course stuff that I'll address here after we cover the syllabus. But if you understand compound interest, time value of money type stuff, you'll do well in your financial life. And so that's all I'm going to say on that right now. We'll come back to that in a minute after we go through the syllabus. So the syllabus, get this computer shut. Not that out of the ordinary, I don't think, in terms of typical course, midterm, and a final. Couple things, my contact information, the book. The book is, you'll need the book, but if you can get by with an older edition, that's great, rather than spend a whole bunch of money, or get the electronic one or whatever. I encourage you to take the least cost option that you can find. Personal finance. Some people find it really boring to be involved in personal finance, or they stress about personal finance. But if you do that, then finances will kind of control you. It's not about greed. It's about, not having to worry about money. If you don't worry about money at all, well, guess what? You'll end up worrying a great deal about money, because you'll be broke and struggling to pay bills. So, exams, 2 midterms, or 2 exams, a midterm and a final, and this project. So what you do in this project, I know it's annoying, people scrolling when you're trying to read, but this is all on the syllabus. It's all posted on Blackboard. And what you do is, to make it more realistic and more useful for you, is, establish a point in your life, and it's not, I don't want your personal details, exactly, but somebody in a similar situation to you, and once they're in their career. So you may be somebody who's, kind of going to school part-time, and you're already doing your career, and it's just kind of continuation, but you're bringing in a reasonable amount of money, so maybe you can apply some of these things now. Or maybe you're somebody who's, just got whatever job or no job at all, and you're just, focusing on college primarily, so it wouldn't make much sense to do some, elaborate investing and all these plans for your health care and everything else, when maybe you're still associated with your parents if you're lucky enough. So anyway, you'll push it forward to a point in your life where you're more or less getting established financially, and then you'll look at all the different aspects of what's going on in your in your financial future. So part of it's the incoming, the income you're going to be taking in, and how you're going to do that. What makes the most sense. And for some people, they may be drawn to a field that pays quite well, and they'll have the luxury of having a high income. But other folks may choose a career field that doesn't, and they're going to, if they want to attain their financial goals, they're going to have to be pretty frugal or pretty smart with their money. There's plenty of people who make tons of money but still live paycheck to paycheck, and then there's other people who live within their means. There's books written about it, The Wealthy Barber, and some of these other things. But when I was in Europe, with all the allowances and stuff I was getting for in excess of 300 grand a year, but the schools weren't paid for because I was a contractor, I wasn't a citizen. So they were basically forwarding me money that I pushed back out to the schools at 40 grand a year for elementary and secondary schools. And the housing, they gave me a tremendous amount of money for a living allowance, but because I wasn't able to buy a home as a contractor. This is when I was on active duty. I did buy a home. In fact, the U.S. government kind of bought that home, which was nice. Anyway, there's different ways to do things, and so anyway, kind of getting down in the weeds, but you'll come up with a plan. We'll look at life insurance. We'll look at Social Security. People say, I'm good. I don't need a retirement. I'm going to live off Social Security. Well, you might want to look at really how much that would be. I mean, government's got websites that will show you. It's a pretty meager existence. Probably not something you want to do. Just about every organization you work for will have some sort of tax-deferred saving or retirement savings. The government has got programs out there to try and encourage people to save, so they'll make it financially attractive. And if you're working for a private company, it might be a 401k. If you're working for an educational thing, 403b, thrift savings plan for the military, and there's a whole bunch for self-employed people. But pretty much everybody has got some means of being able to save in a more favorable taxed situation. Expectations. Yep, these lectures. If you found the lecture already, doing well. There's going to be a lecture video, which is what you're looking at right now, and then there will also be just sort of a small video on a particular topic from that week that kind of takes the place of in-class participation. So when it comes to grading, both tests are equally weighted. The homework is 15%. Thing on the homework is it is not due weekly, right? It's handed in as a batch assignment just prior to whichever exam. The project, that term paper thing, 15 points, and the lecture videos, 10 points. Yep. Class schedule. So like I say, it seems to me like we're getting a pretty late start, but I guess I'm kind of out of the UAA loop, but it seems like we're usually starting mid-month. We're going to take a nice gentlemanly Thanksgiving break. There will be classes that week. Now, when it says week of, I'll try and post the lecture early in the week, and then you have the week to do it. And then, like I say, the homework is, and all the things are not time sensitive. You get them turned in. But there's not as many deadlines. And then finals week, I'll have that final open just like the midterm, where it'll be open over a stretch. Obviously for the final it'll probably be open over the entire week, and the midterm probably about the same. So there shouldn't be any gotchas in that. Just pay attention to when I post the test. There'll be a thing saying it's going to close, Saturday at end of day. And that means, it's closed on Saturday end of day. And so when you're calling me on Sunday, I got nothing. So anyway, okay, back to what we were talking about. So this is not in the textbook. I will provide these Excel spreadsheets. A friend of mine put these together one time, and he was looking primarily at a military audience, so that's why these ages are fairly young. But it's valid. I mean, you just would enter in whatever age you're going to start contributing, whether you're age 18 or age 27. But if you start contributing small amounts when you're younger, you earn interest on interest. That's compound interest. And compound interest is incredibly powerful. So what happens is the age column, this guy's going to contribute $5,500 per year. So basically $500 per month, except for maybe December or whatever. But anyway, it's going to total up to $5,500 per year. So you could do that with $500 per month, skipping 1 month. And then when you hit age 65, or until age 65, from 50 to 65, you'd go up to $6,500. Okay? This column over here is going to tell you the investment amounts, and this is the value at 65, right? ROI, return on investment. So total return on investment. So you can see because of compound interest, this is 8% interest, okay? But because it's compounding, the net, the effective interest rate at the end of it, if you did indeed start when you're 18, is damn near 900%. So it goes way, way up because of compounding. So let's say somebody says, I'll pay you 8% interest for 1 year. They could do that as simple interest. So let's say you give them $100 and they're going to pay you 8% simple interest. So at the end of the year, you'd have $108. Okay. If they compound the interest, that means interest is earned on your interest. They're going to pay you that, 8% still, but they're going to pay it to you on a daily rate. So they get that 8% and they divide it, by 365. And so they give you that fractional percent on day one, and then on day two, you're earning interest not on $100 anymore. You're earning interest on $100 plus that little fractional interest you earned on day one. And then on day three, you're earning that fractional interest that you got on day one and day two. Anyway, it doesn't sound like much, but believe me, it adds up. And if you give it enough time to work, that's how you go from 8% to 894%. So if you end up being able to understand these charts, you'll do real well. There's no do real well in life is what I mean. There's not so much on the exam on this concept. I mean it's related to it, but people who understand the power of compound interest do well financially. Now keep in mind that if you've got credit cards with balances and you're paying interest, all these concepts work exactly the same but against you. So that's why you finance something and all of a sudden it's costing you a fortune. And if it's something like a car or a boat or something that doesn't appreciate, you're kind of screwed. Now, if it's something like a house that's appreciating, that goes up in value over time and doesn't depreciate like a car, well then that's a different thing. For buying a house, yeah, you typically finance it over time because it's such a huge purchase, but also you're hoping that the amount of appreciation on the house is greater than the amount of interest you're paying. When you take out a mortgage, you're basically renting money, right? And if the rent you're paying for that money is surpassed by the amount of value that home is going up, then man, you want a bigger loan. I mean, I've got loans out on a couple properties, and I could probably pay them off, but why would I? I mean, they're like 2-point-something% interest. You'd be foolish to do that. I'll take those things to, well, literally at this point, I'll take them to the grave. Hopefully that'll be a long time away, but guess what? I'll still have a mortgage when I get there. Here's a 10% example. We're not doing that right now in the stock market, but that's the nature of the stock market. We're in strange economic times. But these charts are meant for long term, where things normalize. And getting 10% in the market, believe it or not, is realistic. Based upon, since the turn of the century, that's about what the market's gone up per year. But this ain't one of those years. But anyway, we'll talk more as we go. So here's that same chart again. This is the guy where he did the full amount and he got the 10% interest. So again, here's these arguments that are maybe not such an eye chart. This guy was smart enough to start at age 18. He invested all that money, which added up to $273,500. How much is it worth? It's $5.3 million. And that results in a return on investment of 1,942%. Now, if he delays a year, he doesn't have $5.3 million. If he just waited till the next year, till he's now 19 or she, whatever, they lost $485,000, almost $500,000, because this was money that just had so long. It had from age 18 to age 65. That is so long. So that's why people say, well, I'm going to get everything bought that I need to buy, and then I'll start saving for retirement when I get along in my years. Double up to catch up. It doesn't work that way. What happens is those small amounts you were putting away when you were younger are worth so much more. And so I know student loans right now are kind of the hot topic now. They're talking about the potential for giving back this refund. My theory on that whole thing is it's absolutely not going to happen, because that's not within the power of the president. If Congress wanted to do that, they can pass a law, but presidents by executive order can't control financial things like that. They can curtail, they can postpone, but they can't just forgive. So because it's a financial, per the Constitution, that's definitely reserved for the Congress. So, if you think you're getting your 10 grand back, I hope so for your sake. I mean, I really don't hope so, because I don't think it's fair either. But that's just me. But don't spend your money yet, because this could just be a campaign ploy in an election year where, it gets denied to you, and then they can blame it on the ugly other party. And that's what's probably going to happen in my mind. But we'll see. Okay, financial overview, a plan. So, knowing what you know about those previous charts, it hopefully kind of puts things in perspective. The big picture finances, if you understand the time value of money, then you understand that you want to start saving and save early. And then also you understand that that compound interest is painful if you're immersed in debt for assets that aren't appreciating. So, some definitions. You're not going to see this on the exam, but just so we're kind of starting from the common theme. The process of planning your spending, financing, investing to optimize your solution. Financial goals, spending, financing, and then opportunity cost. Opportunity cost, you will see that on an exam, believe me. If you don't understand opportunity cost, it's going to be very painful for you on at least one of the exams. Opportunity cost means if you do one thing, you're not doing something else. If you choose to go to a movie or watch, bad TV rather than study for the exam, that's an opportunity cost. You've got a finite amount of time, and you chose to do one thing and not the other. With personal finance, it means, let's say, something trivial. Let's say you go to Starbucks every day for $5. That's what, $150. If you did it every day, 30 times 5. If you put that in an investment, that's $150 you would have. So I'm not saying to, boycott Starbucks or whatever, but I'm saying that there are trade-offs in life, and some of these things are good. I mean, especially like if you smoke or whatever, the price of cigarettes and stuff. If you weren't doing that, or if you modified your behavior just slightly to, you know, cut maybe certain vices in half and put things in investments that would be, obviously financially it'd pay off in the future. But anyway, opportunity cost. You'll see it again getting back to student loans. A lot of times people end up with quite a bit of student loan debt, and you're just out of college, you've got the new job, you'd really like to buy that new house, but you got to service that student loan debt. You got to pay that student loan debt. So the opportunity cost of having the student loans is that now you can't buy the house. You delay the house, or you delay savings for something else. So opportunity cost is what you give up as a result of a decision. Everything has an opportunity cost. Everything, regardless of finances, everything else. So financial advisors. The problem with financial advisors is there's very few that have fiduciary, your interest at heart solely. Somebody who's on a commission that's giving you advice, well, their judgment's going to be a bit suspect because they're trying to sell you something. I mean, I encounter this all the time. Anyway, now there's other means of doing it, especially, some of the people that maybe might be available, via the internet, but not somebody with skin in the game, not somebody who's trying to sell you something. You see this especially with gold and other things. I've got some gold, but do I want a whole bunch of gold? Probably not. If you look at the charts, it tends to go flat, and it's not like the market. But it's not bad to have some. But anyway. So you've got to find unbiased, somebody who's going to offer you unbiased advice, or you're just going to have to do your own research. But anyway, just make sure you're not falling prey to a salesperson or somebody with a commission to go. If you are somebody who has skills in that, there is a huge demand for people that are looking for help. And sometimes, if you go into that field, you probably will end up working for a company that does have a commission. But, if you temper it and you get the people, make them some money, maybe it can work out for both of you. Components of financial plan, so budgeting, tax planning. Tax planning is huge. There's, the reason why the tax code is so complex is because the government's basically trying to manipulate you into certain behavior, so it definitely makes a difference how much you're going to be paying in tax. Liquidity is another term that you'll see quite a bit. Liquidity means the ability to turn an asset into cash. So obviously cash is incredibly liquid because it is cash. But something like real estate, not so much, because you've got to sell it, and real estate transactions are notoriously slow, and people can back out, and it's just, financing large purchases, especially a home where it makes sense, where you're taking a loan, but the interest rate is probably going to be less than the amount of appreciation. Protecting your assets and income, so insurance, things like that. And investing, and then planning your retirement and estate. So all these are related. When you're planning for your retirement and your estate, I know most of you are thinking, well, I need money now. Well, if you've got a good nest egg saved for retirement, you can utilize it. You can draw against it. I've often taken loans against my retirement. In fact, the reason why that piece of property was split up into 3 sections was the rear section was actually owned by it was under my 401k there for a few years, and I just restricted what I could do with it, but it was a great way to put that money that was tied up in retirement into something I could use and enjoy. Budgeting, tax planning. So we'll talk more about budgeting as we go. But yeah, forecasting your expenses, assets and liabilities. So I've kind of referred to these terms. Assets are obviously things you own. Liabilities are what you owe. So, you know, it gets to be kind of a, like when you say you have a house, is it an asset or a liability? Well, it depends how big the loan is on it. It's probably a combination of both. The part that you have in equity is the asset, and the part that you owe is the liability. And the net worth is the, you subtract those two. Different people, and this can, you may, what you are. Hopefully your significant other, spouse, what have you, is kind of with the same mindset. Finances often can cause conflict. Liquidity. So remember turning an asset into cash. Money management. How you're going to do that. You don't want to have everything liquid, because high quality investments are typically not that liquid. Or, maybe stocks are quite liquid because you can turn them into cash within a number of days, but it doesn't always make sense based upon where the market is. I would not, stocks are liquid, but I wouldn't want to be selling right now. Credit management, yep, how to use credit. So money management, credit management. Having access to credit is great. Having cards that are maxed out is not. Some types of interest that you pay, for example, mortgage interest, is tax deductible. Personal interest, like for credit cards, is not. So it's kind of a double whammy. And generally, credit cards finance things that are not appreciating assets. So you'll probably hear me. You'll get the idea that I'm pretty negative on credit cards. I'm not. I use credit cards for pretty much everything to track all my business expenses, but I don't, try to carry a balance. I try to keep it zeroed out. So I'm a convenience user rather than a, user paying interest. Interest rates are going up. As inflation goes up, so the credit card fees that they pay. So loans, yep. We talked about college tuitions, cars, houses. So maturity loan. We'll talk all about these type of things, but these are different items. College tuition is more of a necessity, but the difference between a big loan for a car or a big loan for a house, those are two different items. Trying to minimize the car one. House, use your judgment, but they're I haven't had a car loan in many years, but new cars are not, they just depreciate too fast in my mind. I've got newer tractors than I've got newer cars, that's for sure. Financing large purchases, so the lender, money you have available, purchase amount, certainly. I think most everybody has applied for a loan before. It's gotten quite a bit more difficult on the home mortgage thing, just the intricacies after 2007. The big Great Recession, I guess they're calling it. Insurance planning. Some things you need by requirement. For an automobile, it's a legal requirement. For a homeowner, you need it. Well, it's smart to have. It's not that expensive, but it's also usually a requirement if you have a mortgage on it. Health insurance. Health insurance gets kind of funny because it's not necessarily insurance sometimes, especially when it's pre-existing conditions and things like that, but we'll talk more about it. Life insurance, disability insurance. These may kind of surprise you. Like life insurance, for example. I don't have life insurance anymore. Don't need it. Everything I needed to be protected from has already kind of happened in the life, and you're better off spending that money on other things, putting it into investments. But life insurance, once you get older, it's need driven, and anyway, you'll understand that by the end of the term. Investing. So When you're young, you have the time value of money on your side. You also can, um, invest seeking a higher return because you've got a longer time to um, handle the volatility. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, all probably pretty good. I've had bonds before, but typically not now. But we'll talk about the strengths of each and then risk. Some people are, they don't have enough sense to avoid risk. Then other people are so risk adverse that they don't realize that inflation is eroding away their hard-earned money. So it's a balance. But you need to keep it at a tolerable level, but you need to kind of do that in an emotion-free state of being able to set that up. And then planning for your retirement. And then estate planning is after you've departed. How that's going to be transferred to your heirs or what's going to happen with it. What good's going to come from you after you've passed. So, building your financial plan. So, yep, it will enhance your net worth, build your wealth. But the big picture is to, live a long and comfortable life doing something important and not having to obsess about money. So that's why you want to concentrate on finances, especially personal finance. It is frustrating to work for other companies and save them all kinds of money and you're still getting paid the same amount. So this is a chance to actually, do something that's going to benefit you directly financially. Inflows and outflows. So pretty straightforward. Try to keep them balanced. Two different buckets. And then sometimes you can have a tremendous amount of cash or a tremendous amount of wealth, net worth, but it may be tied up in real estate or other things, and you end up with a cash shortage. You've got this huge house that is worth a tremendous amount of money, and you've got huge equity in it, but you can't cover the payments because you don't have the cash flow to support it. So it happens a lot with companies where you see a great running company, but they fail because they don't manage their cash properly. They don't have their liquidity under control. There's all sorts of applications out there that will help you in terms of budgeting now. Keep in mind that, if it's a free service, well, it's not really free, You're kind of the product. You're the one being sold here. Don't be surprised when you get a whole bunch of unsolicited emails or even phone calls if you go on some of these free budgeting apps. But just weigh whether giving up a bit of your privacy is worth it in terms of sharing some of your financial data. You might find an offline kind of system if the online ones like Mint or some of these other ones or Credit Karma or whatever are too intrusive. But budgeting decisions. Yep. And it all has to do, it comes right back to opportunity cost, The income is one thing, and then how much you're going to spend and how much is going to be left over. There's a concept called paying yourself first, whereas people think that, okay, I'll cover all my bills and my recreation and take care of all my living needs, and then whatever's left over I'll invest that. It typically doesn't work because you find things you need that you probably don't. But anyway, so let's say if your rent's, I don't know, 1,000, 1,500, something like that, you also should establish a investment fund that's just $150 or something that's dedicated towards your investing, and it's a debit that comes right out of your account on the same day as your paycheck. So that's money that's already spent. So maybe there's a chance at the end of the month you'll have more money you choose to invest, but you've always met your investment goal by considering your investment amount as just like any other bill, and getting it done first, right at the first part of the month of the pay period. Anyway, so here's the person just doing simple budgeting, trying to figure out how to keep it. The concept of having an emergency fund is wise. There's going to be unforeseen circumstances that are going to come up, and you're going to have to cover them, but you can get by. Also, having that credit card without a balance on it. A credit card that's maxed out is of no help, but a credit card that's got the full balance available, if the car breaks or, appliance goes out or something like that, if you can put it on a credit card, you can use that as a component of your emergency fund. And as long as you can shuffle money around and get it paid off where you don't have to pay interest on it, that can be pretty effective. Again, back to liquidity, inflows and outflows. Leasing a car, typically not. Very few cases does that work out. Usually it's more of a car than you need. I hate to be a buzzkill, but cars are just such horrible investments. You really need to try to, do that smartly, and if you can buy one that maybe has already had a big chunk of depreciation off of it, and buy the car you need, not necessarily the car you want. But anyway, you got to get to work. You got to, get your children around if you've got a family and all that. And especially, I'm not trying to, get you to drive a beater with a heater and put yourself in danger. But then again, you probably don't need a, extravagant car at the early stages of life. Borrow money to purchase a home, typically you will, and it's actually smart to borrow money. We'll go through that, but if you're somebody who says you're going to pay cash for a home and the house is appreciating faster than the interest rate, you're losing money. Anyway, and then sources of borrowing funds, we'll look at those. So seems like coming back at us. But financing can be a component to smooth things out, as long as you're not mired in debt. Protecting your wealth. So for insurance, certain things, like I say, need to be insured. And somebody who's, say, young with a family already and a mortgage, by God, you need insurance. But it's cheap because you can get a term policy that will give you $1 million for quite reasonable, less than $50, $100 a month. But try to do that same policy when you're hit 60, $1 million policy. It's going to be thousands, because your propensity to die at that age is quite a bit higher. When you're young, take advantage of it. But just like I say, when you're older, your house is already paid off. Your children either did or did not go to college, but that's not a future expense for you. So put your money into something else, not into insurance. Cash flows. Yep. So you do need to protect things, but again, I hate paying commissions, and insurance is a commission-driven business for a lot of it. Not so much in auto and home, but life insurance, there's lots of scams out there. We'll talk about this. Again, you have to be comfortable with your investments, but there is risk in anything you do. If you just hold it in cash, for me, that's more risk than I'm willing to tolerate, because cash, you are locking yourself into whatever the inflation rate is. The buying power of your money is decreasing by that amount. So, at the end of the year, let's say you got $100. At the end of the year, you'll still have $100, but guess what? You can only buy $90 some worth of stuff with it anymore, and it's just going to go downhill from there. Hopefully you'll have some investment income. particularly if you do it with properties where you've got rental income coming in from different places. And then investing towards your retirement. The days of the big corporate sponsored, you know, you don't have to put anything in and you just get the retirement, that's not the norm anymore. Most retirements now, you have to, plan and save for it yourself. Hopefully there's a match. Good companies will have a match where they contribute a certain amount if you put in a certain amount. But all these different and what types of investments, we'll talk about that. But generally there's some diversification where you want a broad range of investments to protect yourself. So everything's integrated. Like I say, especially the retirement stuff. Took more loans against my retirement savings and used it for collateral for numerous things. Was not a problem. If you're running behind, these are all short run things. This is not going to work. You need to live within your means. So, you can only work so hard. Your health's going to fail. If you withdraw cash from savings, it's going to... Anyway, all these things are short-term type things. Big picture is you need to have a balance, a budget that allows you to positively save. And these are the things you can do with the cash that you have. So again, they're trying to show how it's all interrelated, which you'll figure out, and which will kind of come together in your plan, your project. They'll harp on liquidity because it is quite important. Yep, and insurance. Yep, everything's tied together. Then they go into psychology and all this other stuff. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to preach to you, but you know how you are. If you're somebody with a huge credit card balance, try to get that under control early in life because that will come back to haunt you. And it can be pretty addictive though. Saving. I mean, you can get to the point where you're living off nothing because you want to save everything. So you can go too far the other direction as well. We'll look at the rent-buy decisions. Obviously, I always had roommates, and I was none the worse for it. Large monthly car payments, that's not a good thing. Credit card bills, minimum payment, yeah, that's not going to work for you. Not in the long run. I've got friends like this. They're fun to be around when they have money. But otherwise, they just blow through it. And this is where this whole thing about paying yourself first. Then you can kind of relax. You don't have to stress, well, I really need to save this because I was going to invest it. Nope. Once you establish your goal and you put that money away, then you don't have to worry about it. You can spend that money guilt-free. And here is the homework. So again, the homework is going to be done, but it's not going to be turned in weekly, right? You're not going to see anything on Blackboard right now to turn in homework. There is no place for it. It's going to be turned in as a batch assignment. So, started at age 24. So we know what it was for 18. It was 5.3 million. Age 24, I think you can figure that out. Not a problem. Homework out of the book. The problems. Anyway, I think we'll be off to a good start here. This is kind of the tenor of the tempo of the course. Once a week, I'll submit a lecture. So you'll look on there and you'll see the lecture, the actual PowerPoint slides. You'll see the lecture video, which is going to be posted to YouTube. Then you'll see a small little video for comment. Anyway, you don't have to, the video for comment, just put a sentence in there. That's just, you don't have to write me a paper on it. Just acknowledge that you read it and say, this was useful, this wasn't useful. Not a big deal. It's just a kind of a pulse check. And that's it. And we'll see you next week.